Hello, beautiful family. We're here on this lovely Sabbath. Spirit directed us to Hebrews chapters 12, 13, and 4. And we actually started off reading 12 and 13 and ended up going into chapter 4. So we're going to start off with speaking about any particular verses and anything about them that stood out to us, or anything about them you may have any questions on, or anything you may want to elaborate on. Go ahead, Lay.
So what stood out to me was chapter 13, verse 6 and 7. In verse 6 it said, "So that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me." That stood out to me because it's basically saying, that stood out to me because you're not supposed to fear anybody but God. So yeah,
Nice.
and then I had a question about what 7 what was it trying to say?
Remember them which have the rule over you, who have spoken unto you the word of God, whose faith follow, considering the end of their conversation. So I believe in this is just speaking about prophets, right? When God sends us angels, right? So it's saying when they say rule over you, who have spoken unto you the word of God. So who would likely be someone who would speak the word of God to you? A Levite, right? Or someone who's been ordained as a prophet?
A priest?
One and the same. A high priest, a high priestess. That's who they would be talking about there.
Oh, okay. Thank
you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
What spoke to me was chapter 13, verses 8 through 10. Yahushua the same yesterday and today and forever. Be not carried about the divers and strange doctrines, for it is a good thing that the heart be established with grace, not with meats, which have not profited them that have been occupied therein. We have an altar, whereof they have no right to eat, which serve the tabernacle. The reason that spoke to me, it's because it explains why you shouldn't really eat meat and stuff.
Yeah, in what fashion? Because they're not talking about food meat, are they?
No, they're talking about in their meat is worldly, and that's why I think that's a little bit after this when they're.
So basically, he was trying to explain being able to come to the tabernacle and who was going to be a part of God's covenant, and the different doctrinations, false doctrinations, and non-false doctrination. Leah, what did you have?
One of the few things that stuck out to me in Hebrews was Hebrews 13, verse 2. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. I thought this stuck out to me. He's basically saying that treat everyone kind and stuff, and treat everyone respectfully, because you never know when you might run into an angel and might block one of your blessings, or just important to them. Treat everyone nice, because you never know who you might be seeing or meeting.
Okay. Lay, did you have anything else you wanted to speak on? You can't be serious. Okay, for me it was on Hebrews 4, verse 2 through This is verse 2 through 3. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. For we which have believed do not enter into rest, as he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. So it's basically speaking about being completely evolved in faith, right? Because it's saying, while very many people, right, have received the gospel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not many, there's some of these people, right, who aren't, this is not, they have mixed beliefs, is what it's saying. So there's maybe people who hear the word and, they not living the word. Just like there may be people who hear the word and don't believe the word. So it says mixed in faith with them. It says, for we which believe do not enter into rest, as he said, right? So this is also a way of saying, we hear a lot about being woke or awakened, but basically saying rest. What does rest mean? To sleep. Come on, right? So basically saying that, but in another way, I would like to say this as is someone who is, because a lot of these people who are against the whole meaning of woke and wokeness, some people want to claim they woke and they're not, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody has their different variations of what woke means or being asleep means or whatever. Mm-hmm. And really a lot of it is action based too, because when you know things, when injustices are happening, when you know that people are lying or not being truthful when they're teaching and profiting off of false doctrination and prophecies, it should do justice to not only turn your back on this stuff in one instance, but in another instance, if Spirit is telling you to, you need to speak out against it. Correct? Mm-hmm. So I believe that's what they're saying too, as far as not being in rest. And not only that, it's just basically saying to be diligent. Like that's the first thought that came to my mind. It's about being diligent and knowing that even though, because it's saying, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. And then going into verse 4, for he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and God did rest the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, right, so then it goes on to speak about Sabbath, right? Mm-hmm. Resting on the seventh day. That's why we don't do any, we are not to work, right? Or have anyone who may work for us to work. It says, if they shall enter into my rest, seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached enter not in because of unbelief. So it's also talking about people who originally would have been a part of covenant, right? Mm-hmm. Who know the word but didn't enter in because of unbelief. He says again, he limiteth a certain day, saying in David, today after so a long time it said, and you will hear his voice. Harden not your hearts. So it goes back to that grace, that favor, that mercy, because in Hebrews 4 verse 16 it says, let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help us in the time of need, right? Mm-hmm. So that is what he's talking about. That is what they're talking about here. Mercy and grace and favor. because it's established again. I mean, that word grace keeps coming in and out of this. Verse 9, Hebrews 13, be not carried about with divers and strange doctrines, for it is a good thing that the heart be established with grace, not with meats, which have not profited them that have been occupied therein. So it's saying this is not profitable for these people. They may think it is. It doesn't touch on that, but it's obvious they do, right? They think that it is. That's why they continue on. But it's saying you need to be focused on about having a good heart and being established with grace, not with meats. And in this instance, that meats was being worldly, right? Being fleshy, materialistic, in vain, vanity. These are some of the things that people may have, these false prophets with this strange doctrination, right? Yeah. And then also, let me throw this in here. Strange doctrination I'm going to tell you this and take this a step further, because like I said, I want to get away from just always saying it's a false prophet, or it is a false prophet, but it's not just like a pastor or a priest. Like I said, remember I mentioned the TED Talks, we were on pause, but someone who just speaks inspiration, right? Mm-hmm. So someone who could be a motivational speaker is what they call it, right? Or some type of public figure or speaker. And, and they have this strange doctrine. And what they're saying is, and this could even be somebody with not such a large base or not on a huge platform like a TED Talk or something like that either, right? Because now we got social media. Right? Yeah. People have huge followings on social media and stuff like that. And I've heard people say like, oh, well, they're glad social media is... And I get their rhetoric, and they're actually really, really correct when they say this gives someone who may not be popular or famous, so to speak, in a certain right now an opportunity to come through and speak and use their platform for good. But guess what? Mm-hmm. Many of these people are doing the same thing, a so-called, quote-unquote, famous or popular, or a motivational speaker or a preacher or a pastor or whatever so-called prophet will be doing, and that's giving out strange indoctrination, right? They're using a rhetoric that they know people sell, like, right, we see it a lot with, what do you call that? You see it a lot with, like, the horoscopes, right, with astrology. You see it with, read certain, people telling you they can see into your future, or they can summon up some person from the past, or they got love spells and potions, or ruin people's life spells and potions. You know what I'm saying? That's strange doctrination too. You know what I'm saying? Like, they on these platforms telling you, and I'm not saying like sending out positive affirmation posts or like trying to, affirm the people is wrong, because some of that is there, but a lot of them too, like they, I've seen some people who actually have like some really good tools and techniques and are, would be considered a prophetess, but then they also are using maybe some type of platform or some type of tool that they know is feeding someone's fleshy views of what could heal them or could, stimulate some type of gain, right? Because a lot of people are into like tarot readings. That's what I was thinking about. The word didn't come to me. So a lot of folks have been into like tarot cards or some type of reading along that line, right? And so they may know and all in all, like behind it, but in the benefits of it, it's more about the funds, right? They're getting a lot of money. People want to know so bad what's their future, what's happening, why they can't find love, why they did what is their boyfriend or their girlfriend or husband or wife doing something. Like, all of these really feeds people's insecurities. It is. It's really and it's a lot of insecure people out here, because they'll pay top dollar for stuff like this. And these people really don't know. You know what I'm saying? And even though they'll say certain stuff and it might fit well, and they think that, and I can go on into that for another reason why some of it might seem like they know why, but that's for another discussion. But a lot of that is just feeding folks insecurity. You know what I'm saying? And they'll think, well, I know I'm making money off of this, or is bringing in a huge, large base of people. And that same thing goes on to pastors and priests. And it really is a lot about people's need to want to belong, people's need to want to know, right? Because we living in a world right now where people just have to know. Because that's really what it is. I just got to know why. And then you know why, and that's still not enough, and you just constantly feeding that. And really, that's just the hole that you have to get filled. And I'm going to be honest with you, the only hole or the only filling for that hole is within. Is doing the work, right? Some even call it, right, we call it, shadow work or something like that. But a lot of it, too, is just that what is already there. Because your body is your temple, right? So dealing with spirit, dealing with the Most High, and working through why you feel this need to always know why something is the way it is. Or why someone does the things they do. As if that's going to change the outcome for certain things. Because it may not a lot of times. And so that's why you're constantly always seeking it. Think about stuff like that. Because if it was a true, resource, you wouldn't always need to keep, you know what I'm saying? Keep needing it, keep searching for it. It's very addictive. And it taps into people's mindset when you aren't confident in your abilities as a person or in your relationship with your family members or with a significant other or whoever, right? Or work. Sometimes a lot of people do it because of their work or line of work or health. They do stuff like that too. So it could be a multitude of reasons why you seek stuff like that. And the thing is you need to be more so thinking about, how do I build a relationship with spirit so that no matter what the outcome is, I'm going to be all right. Because if somebody tell you, I see this getting ready to happen and it's good, something bad can happen afterwards, right? Because this is why the saying has been too, like, look how many people we've seen get successful and then end up look like Julia be saying, they crackheads, right? They can be a crackhead if they're a billionaire, but that don't mean nothing either. We've seen some of them go for broke too, right? Or how many young, people have ended up becoming wealthy very early on, or very prominent in what they do, and then they burn themselves out 5 or 10 years later because they didn't have what? They didn't have the tools. They didn't have the spirituality. They didn't have a group or a family or a substance of people around them that were able to fulfill them and build them up. And that really should be you first and foremost. And then obviously you want to get yourself around people and build some type of acumen with someone where you have that, so when stuff happening to you or being said to you or done to you, it doesn't knock you off, the board. And so a lot of that, and then obviously on the bad end of it, what if you get your cars red or whatever and it's something bad, right? Because whether you get them cars red or not, I'm sure we all have had something bad that's happened at some point in our life. We've all lost a loved one or something like that, or somebody we know, or not even that, or something, you lost your job or your car, whatever. You lost some money in your pocket, out your purse, whatever. It could be something small or big, whatever. But it's more so about how do you bounce back from that, right?
Yeah. Without
it affecting your whole life. And that's the only thing that's really going to prepare you for stuff like that, is your relationship with God. Is having a spiritual fulfilling in substance, because otherwise you're doing what? You have now a substance abuse problem. You're now addicted to getting these readings or you know what I'm saying? Or this adrenaline, or needing to feel like, well, if you always got a bunch of money, then either way, money can fix it, right? Because you got a lot of people like that, like, oh, they feel the need, they're going to always have to be wealthy, right? And the moment they're not, then it's the end. Because they feel like money can always fix their problems. And a lot of times them people might have grew up, either they could have grew up with a silver spoon on their mouth, on their plate, but a lot of them might have grew up really poor. And so that's why that's literally what makes them feel like they're even worthy, is because they have money. They would not feel like they were anything if they didn't have a few dollars. or a nice outfit, $1,000 outfit or whatever the case is, because to them that makes them who they are, which is crazy. So this is what it's talking about, grace, right? And not being worried about this false doctrination in these meets, because we're dealing with a lot of people who haven't had much. And that's what I'm saying. You can always tell who ain't never had nothing come from. But I'm gonna be honest with you. Those same people who you can tell who ain't never had nothing, you can always tell the people who've probably never not had anything, right? Because they also too, they can't handle not having. Because when they don't, it seems like it's the end of the world for some of these people. And then that's why they mad at you when you can figure it out without the things that they need so much of. So we'll end it there.